edition of White Knuckle Report, where we look at the monthly candles, and this has got to be one of the best monthly candle examinations we've done since literally the beginning of 2022. I mean, come on. This is a landmark moment. I mean, this is huge. You're likely to see a monthly candle close above the 786 on the S&P 500. That's quite something to behold, honestly. I mean, that's bullish, right? What more can we ask in terms of evidence for bullishness? I can't think of anything, but guess what? I actually can, because it's the DXY. On weekly candles, there's something very interesting emerging here on the DXY. This looks a bit like a back test of this blue trend line we've been following for a long time. The DXY clearly cares about this trend line, which happens to be confluent with the inverse 0.5 Fibonacci, but going back to literally 2016, this trend line has been a point of support and resistance for this market, right? So it was resistance in 2016, it was resistance in 2020, and then DXY broke above it in 2022, May of 2022, back tested that trend line to rip higher, right? And now you break down, no surprise, you stop at the trend line for some support, bounce back, then get a little bit lower, still dancing around the trend line, and then do it one more time for another oscillation above, break below. This back test to me looks like the setup for a major move to the downside, likely to that inverse 702 target, which is the target we've been talking about on the DXY for like a long time, since it topped, essentially. So if we're about to make a move to this inverse 702 on the DXY, that's going to be a big move. That's essentially 5 points on the DXY down. That's going to be sort of like that move where the markets react, equities, cryptos reacting to the upside in that situation. And look what Bitcoin's doing, right? We've talked about these consolidations, right? This is consolidation. 1, 2, 3, 4 months of consolidation, gradually finding support above that 236. This is a bullish structure for Bitcoin on the monthly chart. Undeniably, this is consolidation before a breakout to the upside. And then when you consider the DXY, it's like the stars are aligned here, okay? For sure. Not to mention all the other cryptos that are popping off, all the other stocks that are popping off. We've talked about this. Apple at new all-time highs, Microsoft at new all-time highs, Nvidia at new all-time highs. Let's look at Nvidia again, because I did say that was something we were going to follow. We want to keep an eye on Nvidia. Like, look at this freaking thing, dude. What? Come on, right? We said, actually, this is a long time ago, I said that on all of these structures, they make sense on the monthly chart, but all of these structures, the entire stock market has that structure of like you hit an all-time high at the end of 2021 or at the beginning of 2022. You have basically all of 2022 as the pullback. And then you got to ask yourself, okay, where are the targets based on the end of 2021 high to the subsequent low? And you got the 1618, right? I've always said that 1618, based on this local structure on the monthly chart, is the obvious target where we should first expect markets to move to. And a few weeks ago, I said we can watch Nvidia to sort of see how the markets react to that 1618. Like, is Nvidia going to stop dead at the 1618? Is it going to spike it through? Is it going to make it short? Well, right now, it's still short of the 1618. So we haven't really seen the reaction. I mean, it's definitely something you want to consider, that Nvidia is like out of steam here, right? It's done. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe this is all hype. Maybe this is, just the 1618 bubble before the whales dump on you, right? For sure. And that's why we talked about hedging. That's a whole other conversation I've mentioned in other White Knuckle reports. But this is obviously a time where you would be loading up on short positions, loading up on VIX call options, whatever your short side play is. Absolutely, you want to be loading up on that. But consider that all that money might be worthless because this market can keep ripping, right? So when I consider Nvidia about to hit that 1618 and clearly bullish on a monthly basis, like insanely bullish on a monthly basis, I I wouldn't be so sure that the 1618 is going to stop NVIDIA dead in its tracks, right? This thing is like a steaming locomotive. Like, it's got a lot of momentum here. It's not like it's just going to suddenly stop, right? It's like, think about momentum. That's kind of what we're looking for in an uptrend. We're looking for momentum. This is strong momentum, okay? I just don't think that momentum is about to suddenly let up, especially when you consider what the DXY is doing, which I think is about to continue its momentum to the downside, potentially accelerating that momentum to the downside. And then you also consider S&P 500, same momentum situation here. This momentum, I think, has a lot more steam potentially, because considering what I just said about the 1618, it's like, look how far that thing has to go before it gets up to that 1618. And the obvious next destination, and this is crazy to say, the obvious next destination on the S&P 500 is literally all-time highs. Right? I mean, you could almost take it to the bank. Mark my words right here on the White Knuckle Report. You can almost take it to the bank that S&P 500, Dow Jones, and NASDAQ are all about to test all-time highs. We'll see what happens when they get there, but I mean, that's the obvious target. I mean, think about how markets, react to their previous levels. The obvious destination that this market has been working towards since October 2022 is clearly all-time highs. It's a retest of the all-time highs. Whether it breaks above that, whether we continue this momentum, the upside above that, is too early to tell. Definitely too early to tell. But what's not unclear at this point is the destination of these markets. The broader market, the major indices are headed to all-time highs. And notice that there is some distance between here and there, right? S&P 500, well, this is the SPY, right? So this is the proxy for the S&P 500, but the SPY at 459 right now, well, actually a little lower than that, at 456 right now, right? All-time high, 480, okay? Literally 24 points, okay? 24 whole points for this thing to move to go to new all-time highs. What do you think is going to be happening in crypto when that happens, right? That's the major point. So the only thing we can hang our hat on, and it's still speculation, but it's definitely high probability speculation, is that these markets are going to test all-time highs, right? You're through all retracements. The only obvious target left is the all-time high, and the distance between here and there is enough for crypto to do things. It's enough for the markets to start perking up elsewhere. Now, it's true that this rally we've seen in the broader stock market has been dominated by a small number of companies, right? Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA, those three come to mind as being sort of the leaders in this trend. They're at new all-time highs, right? So the thing that you have to consider at this point is either that's going to be the end of the story, right? You get to new all-time highs and it's just not a strong rally, and then the market falters there, or the rest of the market begins to catch up. The smaller caps begin to catch up. Crypto begins to catch up, right? Crypto is probably the main thing that I would consider as needing and being able to catch up at this time. But when you consider the formation that Bitcoin's in, the broader crypto market above this 236 with this consolidation, I think the bet makes more sense to the long side. You got to be betting that this thing is more likely to move up than it is to move down, considering the momentum of the stock market and considering this bullish consolidation above a very important Fibonacci level, right? That's not a coincidence that you're consolidating above the 236 as opposed to below the 236 for, as I said, 4 months of consolidation here. Obviously the market is going to expand volatility coming up here, right? That's how these things go, right? You have consolidation and then you have volatility expansion. We had consolidation for 4 months. Maybe we'll still have another month, maybe even 2, I don't know, of consolidation. But the whole idea is within this consolidation, you have to be expecting the volatility to expand. And what is the more likely direction for that volatility to expand in? Well, your guess is technically as good as mine, but when you consider all the factors, I think with crypto, you definitely have to be betting on the upside. And I think the same exact logic applies to the S&P 500. You have to be thinking that this momentum is strong enough to carry at least until the all-time high, right? After that, all bets are off. We don't know what's going to happen after that. But I mean, that to me is a lot of corroboration for us to probably have a pretty bullish August, right? August is potentially a very bullish month. I think it could be sort of the clincher for that trend to continue into new all-time highs as opposed to just test new all-time highs. I think when you look at the dollar and how far this thing has to fall, even potentially beyond the inverse 702, that's telling you that this market has a whole lot more upside to it. Because if you kind of think of this trend as the dollar, right? If you look at the dollar in the same way that you look at any other asset, right? What do these assets typically do, in their retracements? They fall pretty far, usually in that inverse 786, like minimum, let's just actually consider that on Bitcoin, just to sort of like make that relationship between Bitcoin and the US dollar. It's like, how far did Bitcoin have to fall, before it bounced? And if we go, let's just go from, what's an obvious spot to go from? I mean, let's go back from here, right? Let's measure from, the March 2020 bottom, right? That's a very important location, obviously, psychologically speaking, for the market, but it makes sense to measure from there. Look what Bitcoin did in terms of its retracement of the downside. It literally broke below the inverse 786, right? So consider where the DXY is. It's like, if you consider it's just like any other asset, in fact, it's literally a currency, so it's actually a lot more like cryptos than it is like equities, right? They're both currencies. It's like, this volatility is extreme, right? This is an extremely volatile asset. People don't think they don't associate volatility with the DXY. They don't associate volatility with the US dollar. They associate safety with it. But that's a bit of an illusion, especially when the Federal Reserve is doing what they're doing and, the US Treasury is doing what they're doing. It's like, this is not, this asset is subject to just as much volatility as any other asset, if not more, right? So with that in mind, I think you have a lot of work to do on the downside before this trend can even reverse in earnest, let alone make any kind of substantial bounce. I think this is the most substantial bounce that you're seeing, these 2 weeks of the back test of this blue trend line that we've been marking. It's like, yeah, like the next move here is probably going to be intense to the downside, and I think that's going to be reflected in upside price action for cryptos and equities, and I think the setup is there. So pretty simple, right? Like, pretty freaking simple. I don't even have much else to say about that other than hopefully you guys continue to white knuckle. If you see opportunities for buying the cryptos you like, this is probably the obvious time to be taking those chances, right? Obviously consider it's a gamble. Obviously hedge your bets. No matter how certain you are of anything, always hedge your bets. But this seems like as good of time as any to be bullish and to be loading up and to be very optimistic for August, September, and October. I think worst case scenario, we see some kind of crisis event really smack the market in October. I think that would make a lot of sense, especially if we're on the S&P 500 up here at the 1618 in October. Think about how insane that would be, right? By October, you're already at the 1618. I'd probably be like, yeah, sell everything. Get out now. That would be my assessment of the market. But October is still a little while away here. A lot can happen between now and then. And I think there's a lot of bullish opportunity right now between here and October. No doubt about it. So that's what I got for you. Good. It's about to get interesting, okay? Everything with the gas station, man. You don't even understand. I'll give you a sneak peek today for White Knuckle theme music because it's just getting freaking out of control here. The album launch is confirmed. We have the full band. We're not playing as a trio anymore. I've discussed this, but this is something you want to be aware of, okay? You want to be aware of what's going on with the gas station, okay? Because it's about to be good.